Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is CareGiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to CareGiver Solutions Info. I'm so happy you could join us this evening. We have another great program for you. This is the program designed just for you, the family caregiver. If you're caring for someone with some type of memory loss, dementia, Alzheimer's, and you're struggling for answers, you're not sure what path you're taking, which way to go, not sure if you're doing things right or wrong, then I'm glad you're tuned in, because this show was designed to help you get the information, get the expert advice, get those tips that could help you with those challenging situations and hopefully help make your caregiving a little bit easier and better, not only for you, but for the person that you're caring for. So thank you for tuning in. We are live from Boca Raton, Florida. If you have a question or a comment or a suggestion even that you'd like to email me, please do so at my email address, which is delray@arden-courts.com. Again, that's delray@arden-courts.com. We would love to hear from you. We love suggestions and comments and questions, and we'll be happy to address those on the next show. So last week, we had a daughter named Debbie. Debbie was here sharing about her caregiving experiences with her elderly mother who has Alzheimer's disease and the progression of that disease and how Debbie dealt with it along the way. I received a comment, an email from Pat in Delray Beach, and this is what Pat had to say. I was very touched by this daughter's care and compassion and delight in being a caregiver for her mom. Some families are so dysfunctional that they cannot see the forest for the trees when caring for a loved one. There is something so admirable advocating for those who cannot advocate for themselves. Thank you, Pat, for sharing your thoughts. We'd love to hear from the rest of you on anything that you'd like to share, because it's great to share with each other. That's what caregivers do. That's how we all learn. Over the past 15 years, I've been with Arden Courts Memory Care Community, and I have met with or talked to thousands of family members, thousands of caregivers. We talk about their issues. We talk about their challenges. We talk about their options. We talk about very intimate issues and how to solve them. Once a caregiver has decided on a care options of a place for their loved one of the most important things that they think about next is, how am I going to pay for this care? Whether it's in a nursing home or whether it's in assisted living, or even if it's at home with home health while you're waiting to go into a memory care community. That's a very difficult situation because, let's face it, none of us have unlimited income. We have a lot of expenses, a lot of obligations. Sometimes we don't plan for these life-changing situations, and we're afraid that we're going to outlive our money. It's very scary. when someone is looking how to pay, especially for assisted living, let's just talk about that for a minute. Because here in South Florida or here in Florida, Medicaid is one option, but I want to explain about the difference between Medicaid for nursing homes and Medicaid for assisted living facilities. It's very different. So Medicaid is different state to state. If you're in another state, this may not be applicable to you. Medicare is the same in every state in the country. So we're talking about the Medicaid portion when people don't have a lot of resources and they need assistance from the government, from the state government. What we call traditional Medicaid or original Medicaid is actually provided for in a skilled nursing facility, a nursing home, if you will, for long-term care. And that was designed so that people that did not have the income and the assets to provide for their own care, they would actually get help from the state through the Medicaid program. They typically give the nursing home their income, whether it's a Social Security check and a pension, whatever their income is. And then typically the state would pay the difference to the nursing home for the duration of your stay. That's what we call traditional or original Medicaid. Then there's the long-term care managed care program that was initiated in the state of Florida several years ago. This is for assisted living communities, but it works very differently than it does in nursing homes. The state of Florida actually pays a small portion of the monthly fee, and sometimes that portion is not enough for a person to be able to live in an assisted living facility because the family or other people cannot come up with the difference between what the state pays and the monthly fee at the community. So that presents a problem. So in assisted living is typically private pay, which means it comes out of your pocket. It comes out of your savings that you've worked for and hopefully saved for. Even if assisted living, the Medicaid portion, which we just spoke about, is available at some assisted livings, it's not available at all assisted livings because it is optional for those communities to participate or not. Also, maybe you're a veteran and maybe you're thinking that the VA will pay for my assisted living. Well, you really have to look into this because it's not a given. It's not automatic just because someone is a veteran. There are qualifications. There are restrictions. And in order to receive veteran benefits, like an aid and attendance to help pay for care in assisted living, you have to meet those guidelines, whether they're medical guidelines or whether they're financial guidelines or whether they're guidelines that are set by the government depending upon when you actually served in the service and whether you were in wartime or not, and they're very, very specific about dates. So you have to really look into that, and just because someone is a veteran does not mean that they automatically qualify for long-term care benefits for their care. So what do you do then? Well, if someone had the foresight to obtain long-term care insurance, that could be a great way to pay for assisted living. However, not all long-term care insurance policies are created equal. Some long-term care policies are very comprehensive, meaning that they cover home health, they cover assisted living, and they cover skilled nursing facilities or nursing homes. However, some might be covering just one or two and not necessarily all three. So it depends on how your policy was written. You really have to look at that policy and you have to determine what your benefits are and how much they are and how long that they go for. So that again is very specific. I know it's really sad sometimes when I talk to families that perhaps took out a long-term care policy and they paid those premiums month after month and year after year. And then perhaps because the bill payer in the family all of a sudden had memory loss and maybe forgot to pay those premiums, the policy lapsed. And now all of those premiums that they paid for went for nothing because now the policy is defunct and they don't have that ability now to use that long-term care policy when they really, really need it. So these are some of the issues that caregivers face when looking for how to pay for this long-term care. It's not easy, and we're going to help navigate you through some other options. So when we come back from a quick word from our sponsor, we're going to meet someone that works for a company that is going to share with us another financial option that perhaps could be just the thing that you need to help pay for long-term care. And it's something that a lot of people don't think about, something that maybe nobody knows about until, it comes right down to desperation. And you're really looking at every option of how can I, really scrounge around to see if I can afford this and put this in my budget. So this is something I'm very excited to share with you. So we come back, stay tuned, and we're going to be talking about this. We'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare-covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
We're talking today about how do I pay for care? How do I pay for home health? How do I pay for assisted living? How do I pay for memory care? How do I pay for nursing homes? Big questions, big question mark in a lot of lives of caregivers and their families. So joining us today via telephone is Tevor Nicholson of Life Care Funding, and he's going to help us talk about another way to pay for care. Tevor, are you there?
I am, Marcia. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Thank you for joining us, Tevor. I understand you're calling all the way from California?
That's correct, yes. We Life Care Funding does operate, however, in all 50 states.
Well, I'm glad you called in. It would be nice if, you could fly into sunny South Florida and visit us, but I'm glad that you are in California and we have you on the telephone to share with all of our viewers and listeners about this program. And so just let's start out talking about some of this, what care costs, because care is very expensive. Some families are just now beginning to think about care and what it's going to cost, and that's a big burden to them. They're thinking about all these dollars, and it's not inexpensive. And I really work with a lot of families who struggle with this issue. So, we're talking about care options and the costs. What are some of the latest figures that we have?
Well, I don't have accurate numbers about the latest figures of costs of care. I will tell you, though, that every year since we've been around, the cost of care has increased. And the founders of life care funding worked in long-term care. And to your point, they saw a need, and the need was really twofold. One was that obviously seniors need other financial resources like the ones you discussed, such as long-term care insurance and the veterans, but also what else could we tap into to help contribute to helping seniors fund the care they want, need, and deserve? They saw that need, and they also saw this ever-growing population of seniors choosing to lapse and surrender their life insurance policy, really because they saw, from the policy owner's perspective, they saw no reason in keeping the policy in force, and they were not aware that a life insurance policy could have potential present-day value while they are alive.
So that's what we're talking about. Life care funding is able to provide resources through a life insurance policy to help pay for long-term care. Is that right?
That's correct. We provide the opportunity to help a senior use their life insurance policy to assist them in funding their senior and long-term care.
Well, now that's a resource that maybe not a lot of people have talked about. As far as, costs we're talking here, I mean, it's different all the way across the United States. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot with costs because I realize you're calling from California and
That's
your
okay.
costs may be, very, very different than the cost here in South Florida. But, on average, you're looking at $9,000, $10,000, $11,000 a month maybe for nursing home. You're looking anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000 a month for assisted living and memory care. You're looking at lots of money for home health, depending upon how many hours, and here in South Florida, the average rate to hire someone to come into your home for a certified nursing assistant or a home health aide could be anywhere from, $14 to $20 an hour. So you add that up, so many hours a day, so many days a week. It is very costly, and people can run through their money, pretty quick, and then they're stuck without resources. So let's talk a little bit about life insurance. Tell me about how someone would start out about looking at why this might be a good benefit for them if they have a current life insurance policy. Does it have to be a certain kind of life insurance policy? Let's start with that.
Yeah, we can work with all types of life insurance, and we'll never be able to know if we can or cannot work with a policy until we do our evaluation of the policy. But the criteria for us are there's somebody who has a life insurance policy and the death benefit is $50,000 or more. Anything less than that is really in the family's best interest to preserve for an end-of-life expense. So the reasoning behind why life care funding is so relevant in this space is because a lot of people choose to keep their life insurance policy in force, frankly, not for no real reason, meaning a lot of people, including myself, by the way, took out life insurance to protect their loved ones against a catastrophic event, and those loved ones are usually the children. But at this time, circumstances have changed, and so has those insurance needs. So somebody now could reevaluate their life insurance policy and say, my obligation to keep this policy in force has definitely changed, and why don't I see if there's some present-day value that I could extract from this policy to help me fund my senior and long-term care. And we have a lot of clients that we speak with who go down the road with us and actually get a quote and say, you know what, no thank you, we're going to keep the policy in force. So it's really up to the specifics of what the family's needs are. But I can tell you this, 90% of life insurance policies are eventually lapsed or surrendered. If we can be a resource for those people, preventing people from lapsing or surrendering their policies for little or no value, and in turn helping them fund their care with that policy, that's a huge win for all of us.
Right. And sometimes they lapse just because people forget about them. They don't pay the premiums. They figure, I don't need it anymore, and maybe it's not worth continuing to pay on. Like you said, we buy life insurance, for our dependents, and we usually keep that in effect. And then once our dependents maybe are gone off to college, or once they're married, or once they're on their own and maybe they're making good money, we really don't have to continue to carry that life insurance policy, especially if there's other resources to maybe pay for your funeral. If you died, maybe you have enough money in the bank, your savings, that your trustee could use to pay. Maybe you don't need it anymore because your dependents don't require it. A lot of reasons, like you said. So this is a way to check it out, and it might not be good for everybody, like you said, but it's certainly worth looking at.
Yes, absolutely. It's certainly, again, very relevant for people who are possibly have a policy they no longer need, or they can't afford the premiums. Remember, as these policies mature in age, along with the insured, the premiums do spike in value. So spike in monthly or quarterly or annual payments, rather. So a lot of people, unfortunately, will choose to relinquish this policy at the critical time when they could actually be using it as a viable financial resource to assist them in funding their long-term care. And that's, our goal, of course, is to catch that family before they choose the alternative of accepting little to no value for an asset, i.e. their life insurance policy, that can prove to be a financial resource.
Right. Now, are we talking whole life? Are we talking term? Does it matter? Are they both options and that are possibilities to collect monies from?
That's correct. We can look at all types of life insurance. Commonly, we work with a lot of term and a lot of universal. And the reason is whole life policies have a tendency to have high cash value, meaning somebody might have a $50,000 whole life policy with $40,000 of cash in the policy, which would equal approximately 80% cash. If that policy came our way, we would recommend that the family actually pull the money out of the policy, and perhaps once they've exhausted that money, they could then use our program. Because the cash value in that case would supersede what we could offer. Traditionally, the values we can offer for a life insurance policy vary from 30 to 65%. Last year was approximately 46%. One thing to always keep in mind is that, again, we will never know if we can or cannot work with the policy until we evaluate it. But the good news is there's no cost or obligation to the family to explore this option.
Now, what if they have a policy, and they have a company an agent that they purchased a policy from? Is there an advantage to go through a company like yours rather than going to the company that issued the policy to find out what it's worth?
Well, the insurance carrier will not be buying a life insurance policy. What they'd be able to do would they would be able to pull the cash out of the policy and close that policy, but the insurance company has no interest in buying this life insurance policy and keeping the policy in force.
So this is totally unique with what you do.
Yes and no. What we do is what's called a life settlement transaction, and that's existed since the 80s, where companies out there buy life insurance policies or broker life insurance policies, and they have buyers out there. And what we do out over here is we do a life settlement. Make no mistake, we are licensed, we work through a licensed provider to do this transaction. But we work a bit differently because we work with smaller policies, $50,000 being the minimum. And because we're the buyers, we actually can work a bit quicker because we're not brokering the policy. And because of our clientele are in a care continuum, we can price a bit more aggressively than the traditional life settlement.
Okay. So let's say that someone came to you and they had a policy and you determined that there was cash value in that and they wanted to get that out. Do you actually send them a check? Do they get a lump sum? And if they do, can they use it for anything that they want, or is it specified with how they can use it?
So what our company is designed to do is to help seniors fund their long-term care and senior care. So if we're able to make an offer for a life insurance policy, the money that we can get, the value, is then deposited into an FDIC-insured irrevocable account under that senior's name. This is held in a national chartered bank that's designed to fund the care provider of their choice. So again, the money is locked up in an account under that senior's name, and it's up to the senior how and where that money is being spent. But it is or has to be used to help fund that senior's long-term care or senior care. We are in the business of being that additional financial resource to help families do that.
Okay, so when you mention FDIC, that means that it's insured.
Correct.
So they don't have to worry that they're going to lose their money if something happened to the bank, and they're 100% covered just like any other money they may have in their name.
Correct. And we actually always preserve a minimum of $5,000 or 5% of the policy conversion for a beneficiary of the family's choosing. And furthermore, if anything unforeseen happened and the senior passed away before the entire benefit was spent, that remainder would go to the designated beneficiary of the family's choosing.
So just like, let's say, a CD in a bank, you have who the person owns it, and then you have a designated beneficiary if something happened, so pay on death, similar to that, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great analogy.
Okay, good. Well, this is really a lot of great information. We're going to be talking more to Tevor about lots of other questions dealing with pulling money out of a life insurance policy to help pay for long-term care. Maybe something that you've never thought of, maybe something that you want to check it out. So I have lots more questions. I'm sure you do too. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have those questions and we'll ask Tevor. So stay with us.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney, but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you. Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
I'd like to thank our local sponsors and also our national sponsor, Arden Court's Memory Care Community, for helping to make this program possible. Arden Courts is a leader in memory care. They understand, they can help because memory care is all they do. We have over 50 Arden Courts located throughout the United States. And if you'd like to find out if there's an Arden Courts near you, you can call their toll-free number. And when you're calling their toll-free number, you may want to ask them about a free offer. Arden Courts helps not only the residents, but the caregivers as well, because it's a family situation. It's a family disease because Alzheimer's dementia affects more than the person who's afflicted. It really does affect the whole family. And because of that, we want to help caregivers understand what they're up against and help them through those trials and, give them the resources that they need. And a great resource is this book. It's called The 36-Hour Day. It's written by Dr. Peter Rabin. It is considered the best of the best when we're talking about caregiving and information for caregivers on dealing with the different challenges of memory loss, dementia. It explains everything about what's the difference. It explains about the care. It explains about the different behaviors that come along with someone that is suffering from memory loss. And not only does it explain it, but it gives you lots and lots of great information about how to cope with it. So if you'd like to have your own book of the 36-Hour Day for free, all you have to do is call Arden Courts. Their toll-free number is 888-478-2410. Again, 888-478-2410. Give them a call. Let them know that you heard about this offer on the Caregiver Solutions Info program, and they'll be happy to get your information and make sure they get a book mailed directly to you as soon as possible. So give them a call, and maybe you'll find out there's a Arden Courts near you. You can visit and take a tour, and they'll be happy to show you around and answer any questions you have about memory care in an assisted living community. So we're back now with Tevor Nicholson from Life Care Funding. We're talking about how do we pay for long-term care, because that's something that caregivers always face. They're not sure they have the money, and we're talking about pulling some money out of an existing life insurance policy that could help pay for care. So thank you again, Tevor, for joining us all the way from California via phone.
My pleasure.
So let's talk a little bit more in detail about this idea of pulling the monies out. So first of all, I'm curious, if someone wanted to look into this, is it something that they have to go to an office? I know you cover the United States. Can they do it over the phone? What's the best way for someone to find out if they have a qualifying policy?
We do operate in California. We have offices in California, New York, and Portland, Maine is where we're headquartered. But we can operate in all 50 states via phone. We also have accredited professionals around the country, agents, elder law attorneys who are versed in offering our program to their clients. So if somebody would prefer a face-to-face contact, we can, in most cases around the country, accommodate that. But really, it's as simple as contacting Life Care Funding. We would then send an application, and once we receive the completed application, we do all the work on our end and underwrite the policy to determine if we're able to make an offer for it. And then if we can, and if the family chooses to accept that offer, we deposit that money into an FDIC-insured account, again, designed to fund the care provider of their client's choice.
Okay. So how long does it usually take between the time someone makes an application for you to look at their policy and let's say it's good and it's funded into the FDIC account? Is there a long wait? What's the average wait time for that?
Traditionally, it's around 30 to 60 days upon a completed application.
Okay, that's not real long.
Well, yeah, it's also a heavily regulated transaction at the protection of the senior. Therefore, we want to make sure that everything's going through the appropriate channels. I mean, we are actually obtaining information from third parties who, therefore, we have to take some time in chasing down that information. Notifying the client, of course, about the status regularly on a weekly status update.
Okay, that's great. So if someone had a policy and they wanted to get the cash value out of it to use, and you mentioned that it's deposited into an account and they can designate what provider that goes to. So let's take a scenario. So let's say there's a husband and a wife, and the husband has the life insurance policy because he had it for a long time because he wanted to protect, his wife and his kids. And now they've decided that, because of their lifestyle, they may want to cash this in. So they go through the process. It's put into an account, and they decide they want to have some home health come into the home to help the wife take care of her husband. So kind of walk me through how that would work. Does the wife have access to the account? Does she have to ask for a check to be mailed to her? Does it go directly to the home health provider? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So just one thing I want to make sure everyone understands is that we are buying a life insurance policy. We are not pulling the cash out. So we're buying the policy based on the present day value or fair market value of the policy. So to continue with your example, if we're able to work with a policy, let's just say a client had a $100,000 policy and we're able to offer $50,000 for that policy, that would then be deposited into this account under the senior's name who is in need of care. They were then using a licensed care provider, a home care provider who was coming in and taking care of them. Therefore, a check would be mailed to that care provider on a month-to-month basis for whatever the cost is. We can change the cost because Life Care Funding is actually the one who administers the specific dollar amounts to go to the bank, and again, the family can change the dollar amounts funding care. The benefit of the account is twofold. One, if a family is trying to take care of their loved one and they're across the country, it gives them comfort, right? They don't have to worry about paying a bill every month. And two, because the money is going to a licensed care provider out of an account that's protected, it is recognized as being tax-free.
Oh, okay. So that is an advantage there, too.
Unless the client had an estate tax that exceeded $5 million. But for the most part, this transaction will be recognized as tax-free because, again, it's being used to fund a licensed care provider.
So you actually then act as the administrator over this account.
Correct. So we oversee the correct dollar amounts going to the correct care providers. That falls on our end.
Okay. So now let's say that the gentleman's at home, he's been getting home health, and you've been sending money to the home health company to pay for his care. And now the wife has decided that she can't really do it at home anymore, even with the help. And now she wants to move him into a memory care, assisted living, because, he does have dementia and it's too much for her. So now what happens? Can that same monies then be designated to a new service provider?
Absolutely. The benefit can move with the family. This is their money, and they can choose to move that money where they see fit. This does happen regularly. People change, as you said. There's a change in care need, right? They might be receiving home care, and then they have to move to a skilled nursing facility or assisted living, and all we do is move the benefit with them. And of course, again, the dollar amounts can be adjusted as well to accommodate the family's needs.
Okay, well, that's great because it's kind of seamless then. It's just, you just make a call or whatever and have it changed and life goes on.
Absolutely, yep.
That's good. Good to know. So now there's a question that, life insurance, everybody thinks about life insurance. Of course, they think about it when your life ends and you die, because usually there is a monies then to pay for a funeral, for things like that. So is there a concern when you're dealing with your customers about they're talking about, how am I going to pay for a funeral if I use all this for the care? Is there provisions for that? Do you set aside money to help this, or how does that work?
Yeah, we preserve a minimum of $5,000 or 5% of the policy conversion, which is attached to a beneficiary of the family's choosing. And again, this is a minimum, so a family could choose to preserve more, and they can also change that. They could say, initially we needed $3,000 a month to go to this particular community, but now we realize we only need $1,000 a month because perhaps they came into some money. So then they would preserve a larger amount for the beneficiary or beneficiaries.
And that
that happens as well with larger policies where the offer is high and they have a lot of money, so they might choose to use $100,000 for care and preserve the other couple $100,000 for their loved ones.
Okay, and then that beneficiary of that, they pretty much are allowed to do with the money whatever they want, whether to pay for funeral expenses or to pay for anything, or do they have to specifically spend it on something specifically intended?
No, that would be that would be up to the family because their loved one has then passed.
Okay, so they can use it for funeral expenses. They can use it to fly in family members to the funeral. They can use it for whatever they want. Pretty much just like a regular, bank account.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, great. So you mentioned that there's no fee for actually having someone to look at the policy to determine, to basically give it a look through and do your evaluation. There's no charge for that. Is there a charge for actually converting or for you buying this policy? Obviously, I would imagine you guys have to get paid somehow. How does that work?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So there's never a fee to the family to use our program. We make our money by becoming the beneficiaries of this life insurance policy. We are now responsible for keeping that policy in force and paying the premiums. And then when the policy, when the senior passes away, we then collect the full amount of that policy.
Okay. And so you basically are a beneficiary, and then there's another beneficiary with the amount that's set aside, correct?
That's correct. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. Any restrictions on age? Any restrictions on health? Any kind of restrictions when it comes to that? Or are you just looking at, the actual life insurance policy itself? Do any other factors enter into that, whether someone would qualify or not?
Well, there's a number of factors. One is the specifics in the life insurance policy. What's the size of it, what type of policy it is, what the premiums are. The premium's going to inflate. And then health is a factor as well. One of the things we're looking at is we're evaluating the health of the senior because a life insurance policy is a mortality-based or longevity-based asset. I always explain it like this. When I took out life insurance, a nurse came over, evaluated my health, and determined the monthly premiums were based on that. So we won't really know much until we do our evaluation of what the value is, but I can tell you this. The average age we see is between 70 to 90.
Okay.
Most have multiple conditions. Usually, this program is catering to people who are looking for care for private duty home care or home health care or for assisted living. It seems to be it can help in all arenas. By the way, we've done cases in skilled nursing and independent living, but really those are where we're seeing the bulk of clients.
Okay, that's really, really good to know. So we're going to be talking more to Trevor in a moment. When we come back from our last commercial break, Trevor, I want to ask you a question, and I'll let you think about it. Maybe a success story that you have to share. And also, I'm curious, who would not be a good candidate for this type of financial option? So let's think about that, and we'll go to break, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Take care.
Great.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney, but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to to you. Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
We're back, and we've been talking to Tevor Nicholson via telephone all the way from California. And Tevor is a representative from Life Care Funding. Life Care Funding converts life insurance into monthly payments covering any form of senior care. So that's very exciting for a lot of people that maybe didn't know about this option. Thank you, Tevor, for sharing with us. So I'm looking at one of your brochures, and you have a couple examples in there to illustrate how this can be a great benefit. So I was wondering if I could talk about maybe example number 2 and share with our audience, and you could maybe expound a little bit on it if I give you the criteria. Is that be okay?
Absolutely, yeah. If I recall, is it the $50,000 policy that
yes,
we were able to
okay.
offer $21,000?
Right there, right. So here is a female. She's age 74. She has a policy size of $50,000. The policy conversion is $21,700, which equals a monthly benefit of $800. The benefit duration in this case was 24 months, and it included a funeral benefit of $2,500. So is that a typical scenario?
Yeah, that's a pretty standard. I can outline the specifics of the case. Basically, it originated from a family, like most people, where they were looking for alternative financial resources to help them fund their care at a community that we worked with. So they thought they were out of options. This was a term life insurance policy. So term has no cash value.
Right.
And they saw no relevance in keeping this policy in force. And the community recommended that before they do anything with that policy, they should talk to Life Care Funding. So it was a simple one conversation explaining what we do. We then sent a qualification form to the family or an application. They submitted it back. We did our work and were able to present an offer of $21,700. So in this case, they needed what I would call a funding bridge, a little bit more to get over the hump, to give them that necessary chunk of money to afford the top pick care provider of their choice. So with that additional $800, it was able to give them that. And they were able to sustain themselves in that property for a couple years. That is pretty standard. A lot of people will have some other income available to help them out, or savings, right?
Right.
And they need an additional kick to get over that hump. But that's a pretty standard success story. Coming full circle, commonly overlooked, right? They did not walk into that property going, how can I use my life insurance policy? So as you can imagine, the family was absolutely ecstatic because they got the opportunity to tap into this insurance policy they really had no idea they had the option to use.
And I love this because I see this all the time. You know, families want a particular community. They want the best. You know, they want to come to Arden Courts. You know, Arden Courts is an awesome community for memory care for their loved one. And, they want the best. And so maybe they're just short a little bit. And it makes a difference between going to the best and going to your second or third or fourth choice, which is, not what you really wanted. And I love how you said it gets them over the hump of needing that little bit extra. I mean, it happens all the time. They're asking family members. I have a lot of scenarios where you have a parent and maybe there's several children, maybe there's stepchildren involved, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to pay for dad and stepdad to go into a assisted living because he has Alzheimer's, and how is mom, or the stepmom, how is she going to keep living because they can't spend all of the money, and they're asking the children, the adult children, well, if we all put in X amount of dollars, maybe Susie can, put in, $500 a month, and Danny can put in $500, but George, he has a better job and he has a lot of money, so maybe we'll ask him to put in $1,000. So maybe between all of this, plus their savings, plus their Social Security or their pension, maybe they can afford it. It's very stressful for families. And I think,
always say this, Marcia. I use myself as an example. I have 2 little girls, and that's why I took out life insurance. So when I needed care, I know that my circumstances as well as my insurance needs will have changed, and I would hope that my children, as we all know, a lot of the children are the ones that are responsible for helping fund mom and dad's care. I hope my children, if I needed care, their vested interest would be to, not only find the best care provider, but the best financial resources to help me fund that care provider. And I certainly hope they're not going to be living in my basement waiting for me to pass away, right?
Right. But you don't want to leave that burden onto your children, because
Right.
they have their own lives and they have children of their own and they have expenses, and it's a very difficult hardship on the family, for everybody to have to pitch in to do this, but it happens all the time. So, we urge people to, make a plan and make it early, and there is something to be said for getting long-term care, although, that has changed in the years. Not many years ago, you could get a life insurance not a life insurance, but a long-term care insurance policy that would be unlimited for your lifetime, and those don't exist anymore. So things are changing. So we have to look at all these different types of resources to figure out where we're going to get the money to pay for care. And I think this is a really good option for a lot of people. So that begs the question then, who would not be a good candidate to take advantage of this program? Can you give a scenario of maybe somebody that you've denied that you said, this really isn't for you?
Well, a couple examples. If someone can afford to keep their policy in force by paying those premiums, and I think that's the best option to preserve for their loved ones, then and they can also afford to pay for their care, most importantly, then we're probably not going to be a resource for them. Our profile again is people who are in risk of lapsing or surrendering the policy. And then for us, when we evaluate the policy, some people simply might have a life expectancy that puts their value of their policy down to a minimal amount where it's really not in their interest to use our program at this time. So, for an example, after our evaluation, the policy might only be worth 20%, but if they keep it in force for another year, the policy might spike in value by 10% in just another short number of years. So sometimes it's best to hold on to it and have us reevaluate the policy after a certain number of years, because at this time it's just not going to be a lucrative choice for the family.
So it sounds like maybe, in other words, you're saying that maybe in certain cases the death benefit, it would be more valuable to the family than actually selling the policy to pull some money out.
That's correct. Exactly.
Okay. So that kind of makes sense, that in some cases continue to pay the premiums and then have the death benefit paid upon death like a normal life insurance policy, rather than needing to pull out money and for care on an ongoing basis. So you have to look at those pros and cons, and it's not for everybody, but it certainly is an option. If someone was interested in taking advantage of having you evaluate for no cost their life insurance policies, can you give some specifics about how they would do it? Is there a telephone number they would call? Is there an email address? How can they contact you?
There's a couple ways to do that. Our website, which is pretty easy, it's called lifecarefunding.com. You can go on there and you can either fill out some information via email. You can always contact us via phone, which is right on our website as well. I'll give everyone my direct phone number. I'm happy to do that. We're very much a company who wants to speak with the family, because our program is obviously a bit complex. We don't expect anyone to have to just merely fill out a form on our website, and we'll take it from there. So the general number is 888-670-7773. Extension 6625 is my direct line. I'm always happy to talk to a family to further explain the benefits in using this. Of course, you can call that general number as well, and that number is on our website. And anyone over here would be more than happy to assist you. We're a team over here, so obviously we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to further explain the benefits in using life care funding.
Well, thank you so much. Can you give your phone number again with your extension, Trevor?
Absolutely. It's 888-670-7773, extension 6625.
I want to thank you so much for calling in from California today to speak to us on how we can have other care options for long-term care and to pay for those. And I appreciate your time. And we want to encourage everybody to take advantage of this information. I also would like, before we close, to encourage you to call Arden Courts and get the free book, The 36-Hour Day. And you can call them at their toll-free number of 888-478-2410. Please stay tuned, because next week, same place, same time, we'll have another great program for you on Caregiver Solutions Info. In the meantime, don't forget, give somebody a hug, because they need it and so do you. We'll catch you next time. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions. The opinions expressed on the preceding